All right, so here's an update on the trigger system. About 6 or so years ago, I had a Blue Seas system, which is a fuse block, and I wired it to all the switches in the interior, and it worked great. With that, throughout time, I removed things and I don't have them anymore. And then I had to, there was just so much wiring that I was useless. And I just removed all the wiring and just last week or so, and I realized, holy crap, I had a lot of old stuff. I went to the trigger system. I actually have had it just in a box for about 2 or 3 years. I got it at Off Road Expo on a sale, and honestly, I needed to install it a long time ago. And the reason I didn't was life got busy. We moved 2 times in about a little over a year. 2 UAs, life just got busy. So now that we're moved and we're settled in, I'm getting to tackle these projects. And now with COVID-19, I'm getting to even tackle them quicker. Anyways, I did the trigger system. And what's really cool about it is the amount of wiring you save. So, it is completely wireless, and I'll get into that. I put them here just in that location because that's where I had room. Ideally, I would have liked them to be completely lined up and even, but over here you can actually mount it a little bit further back by the firewall. It actually protrudes out, and both of them couldn't be 100% lined up. You can control it through this, or you can control it through there's a button on there, or you can control it through an app. I haven't set up the app yet, but I plan to do so soon. Another thing that I noticed with the system is that they go off of an RF frequency, and I think it was like garage door openers or locking vehicles. It would actually trigger some of these things to turn on. And I Googled it, and I found out in the directions that you can create your own RF frequency, or you type in a code, and the longer the code, the less likely it is. So I made it like 37 numbers long, and now I don't have that issue. So basically, you hold down 1 and 4, and then that puts it into like program mode, and then you just push a bunch of buttons on here, just random numbers. Make the code 100 numbers if you want. The longer it is, the less likely it'll have frequency issues with other things. So once I'd made that like 37 number code, I've been issue free. They also recommend wiring it straight to the battery. There's 3 wires. You wire one of the positive, one of the negative, and then they recommend the last one to be wired to 12 volt source. So if the key is in, it has power, and if it's off, you don't. They said don't wire it to the battery. You can, but they don't recommend it. So naturally, I wired it straight to the battery. I'm going to change that up though. I do like the idea to be able to completely turn off the system. And I think that's important at times. But what I'm going to do is actually wire the 12 volt switch I'm going to wire the 12 volt wire that wire that basically turns on with the ignition. Instead of doing the ignition, I'm going to wire it to a switch. So basically, what I have the access of doing, or the option of doing, is if I have the vehicle off, but I want the lights on for some reason, I can flip the switch that allows the trigger system to be active, and then I can push these buttons and turn things on. But if that switch is off, it's almost like the key is not in the ignition. And the reason being is that I have rock lights, and if we're wrenching on my rig at night and in the middle of a trail, it's happened before, it's happened to all of us, all my buddies, we can work on it without having flashlights and stuff because you have your rock lights and the vehicle's off, so you want your rock lights on. But there's times you don't want to have to deal with it maybe being on. So I think wiring it to a switch so I have the ability to have it off like an ignition system, or having it on anytime I want, is the happy medium there. So overall, I'm happy with the system so far, but it is a new system, so we'll just kind of go over it. You can push, for example, this button. This turns on my rock lights. They can change colors. Then like right here, I've got my ARB knockoff lights. Here I've got my rigids. And then here I've got my fan. And then on this one, I have line lock. So you can hear the, oops. You could hear the line lock button. And basically what a line lock does is you push your foot on the brake and then you push that button and it'll hold brake pressure. And the reason being is that on like steep climbs, I've always noticed that a parking brake only does so much on super steep inclines. So it's always great to, put it in park. If you have a parking brake, use your parking brake. I think as many as possible in terms of as many fail safes as you can is better. And then lastly, I will engage the line lock. And quite honestly, my parking brake was hooked up. I have to adjust it. It's those Eldorado calipers. They suck. They have an internal parking brake. But anyways, I just like the line locks. Really, the main thing is for steep hills. So, yeah, that's a tangent. It has nothing to do with the trigger system. But while I'm here, I'll just show you. Let me grab the light. I've got two of them. You can see it right there. Basically, they go straight to the brake lines. I've got one on each side, and then that'll hold front brake pressure. And if you want to do burnouts, which I don't recommend on 40-inch tires, you could, because you've got front brake pressure, but the rear is free. So anyways, that's the trigger system. So far, I'm pretty happy with it. I can't wait to do, get the app set up. I think you could do like strobe lights and stuff, just stupid stuff. But really what I enjoy about it is the fact that if I've got my truck off and sometimes I meet buddies in the desert, we're all meeting up at camp for the weekend and we don't know where we're at. A cell phone service, you just hit like a strobe light with the truck off and they'll find you. So anyways, that's the trigger system. And that's something I just installed recently and should have installed a long time ago.